Boromir spent the night huddled next to a small fire near the south gates, in nothing but his undershorts. He'd made a rough shelter in a corner formed by two low walls. His cloak, stretched atop the broken masonry and held in place by stones, gave him shelter from a fine drizzle. He sat shivering, holding his wet blanket out to dry, peering out into the dark, starting at every shadow. But nothing moved this night in Old Tharbad. He had a small cut to his forehead, but he wasn't sure how it had happened. Whatever the cause, it was making his headache worse. He found the phial containing the tincture of snowberry, if that's what it was, safe and intact in his messenger bag, but it was empty. In the midst of this forlorn wasteland, the bag seemed to him like the last remaining piece of civilization he had left. He'd lost most of his provisions when he saw Lostal drifting away from him in the river. The remaining cheese, the cold venison and grouse, as well as his salt, pepper, lard and tea were gone. Anything else that had been in the bags or tied to the saddle was gone. Spare tunic, goatskin gloves, waterskin and soap. For whatever reason, though, he had chosen to put his flint and steel and frying pan in the bag. The rest of his cooking gear was lost. And by some stroke of luck, he'd found the empty Fegwine bottle intact at the bottom of the bag. Finduilas had reminded him to fill it while he was still near the flowing river. It was better than nothing, but it held only half a pint or so. After the blanket was half dried, he draped it over his shoulders, then skewered the entire side of salt pork on the end of his sword, rubbing his temples with finger and thumb.
"Do you still have the map?"
said Finduilas. Boromir stared at the ground, murmured,
"I do not need a map, Mother, to know that I'm in trouble."
As dawn broke, he woke shivering and poked at the ashes of the fire. The drizzle had stopped, but the air was cold and damp. He ate some of the pork, then pulled the blanket around him, wishing he had more firewood. As dawn turned to morning, the mist thinned, and the sun turned the higher walls of the ruins a pale gold. As he warmed, he pulled on his undershirt. It was still a little damp, but hopefully the sun and his own body heat would have it dry soon enough. He took a drink and ate a couple more slices of the salt pork, along with 3 raw duck eggs he'd found in the ruins. Afterwards, he shook the rain from his cloak and draped his black leather surcoat and gloves over nearby walls. His woolen hose and tunic were almost dry, but he turned them anyway, pinning them down with his saturated boots. As he sat against the wall under his drying cloak, the blanket wrapped around his head and shoulders. His eyes became heavy, and he fell asleep. The stairs of the western flank tower had long since collapsed, but the others were intact. Boromir padded carefully up the winding stair, wincing at the grit underfoot and negotiating the odd loose step. As he neared the top, fallen masonry made the going difficult, and he half regretted not bringing his boots. After waking in the warm mid-morning sunshine, he had donned his brown tunic and hose and stalked off through the weeds, but his boots were still playing host to half the grey flood. He looked up at daylight where the floor above had caved in. After clambering over the last of the rubble, he emerged onto a worn stone floor, dark and slippery with rain. The far half had collapsed, leaving a jagged hole. The walls and roof above the floor had been removed, leaving the remnants of arrow slits at chest level. He looked to the south, back along the road, where the sheep drifted like the ragged, grimy clouds above. To the west, the grey river flowed steadily past a stunted watchtower into the haze. The Gwathlo seemed wider out there, and he sensed its silent, relentless power with a deep dread. He turned and looked north over the ruins towards the bridge tower.
"That pile of fallen masonry they call a ford,"
said Finduilas,
"is not worthy of the name. I would find a long branch to fashion into..."
I'm not considering trying that again if that's what you're thinking. The water is too cold. The shock of it froze my bones.
"Oh, it's the cold that puts you off."
He ignored her, looking along the river in both directions. There was no stretch where it broke into narrow channels like at the fords of Eisen, and the opposite bank was still built up with crumbling quaysides.
You might find it easier to cross somewhere else, away from the ruins.
There is nowhere else.
Then you shall have to swim.
Mother, you know I cannot swim.
She was silent for a while.
Those trees yonder.
He mused.
They show where the channel is deepest. If you gather enough wood, you can use it to float across. Of course, you should use the current to take you across at an angle. It is folly to try to fight the river.
She almost had him.
The current is too strong.
He said firmly. Any attempt to cross the Gwathlo to the west of Tharbad was out of the question. Unless there were a ferryman downstream offering his services to the multitude of traffic that moved north and south these days, he would have to cross north of the city.
It might be prudent to find a boat.
Would that it were so simple.
The flood water seemed to cover much of the north part of the city too. Beyond the walls rose a low hill, speckled with what might have been Evermind, and to the east, a vast fenland dotted with white stretched out towards the unseen mountains.
The Swan Fleet.
In the middle distance, zigzagging alongside the course of the river, was a series of raised walkways. In times past, when people still lived in Tharbad, it must have been thought profitable to have access to the fens for whatever reason.
Ignore the pretty name. The marshes are treacherous. You may as well try walking across the Great Sea. Besides, those walkways will be rotten and half sunken.
I shall have to venture out there and make sure.
Perhaps they would grant him a swift passage through the marshes and onwards to Rivendell.
Nothing will be swift now without a horse.
Poor Lostal.
During the night, as he drifted in and out of sleep, he'd fancied that she might find her way back to him.
You forgot that you left her full of darts.
Must you be so callous, Mother?
You can buy another horse in Bree.
If I don't starve first, I won't be snagging much game with only one snare.
Wait until you reach Bree. A hot bath, cold ale, a soft bed for the night.
How far is it though? 5, 6 days? Will a soft bed be worth the 100 miles it'll add to my journey?
Even if you choose to walk directly to Rivendell, it's at least a 10-day walk. All this is moot. Sometime soon, Boromir, you are going to have to face the inevitability of crossing that river.
Mother was right. If those walkways out in the marshes were in a state of disrepair, he would have to find some way of crossing the river anyway. He was silent for a while as he gazed at the water.
The elf spoke of a ford to the north,
said Finduilas finally.
I thought you told me never to trust an elf.
She is no longer a hindrance.